Pokrovsk. The situation is critical. Zelensky on the front lines.
He met with military personnel and discussed defense, supplies, rotations, and drone operations. Each position is under personal control.
Again, Oral, and again, Vladimir. Again, the thermal power plant and substation. Trump revealed the secret of Beijing and Moscow.
Russia is conducting tests and China is conducting tests, but no one talks about it.
He picked it up from Putin and now he's making threats. The US president is threatening war. He accused the Nigerian authorities of crimes against Christians and suggested that the US might enter this African country. North Korea is once again sending people across the border. 10,000 North Koreans are at the border with Ukraine. A fence, a surveillance system, and drones. Norway is strengthening its border with Russia.
It turns out that war with the Russians is almost at the doorstep.
Conscription is becoming permanent. Putin has signed a new law.
The new law allows conscription procedures to be carried out all year round. Medical examinations, psychological screenings, and commission meetings will now take place without interruption.
So, friends, now we're going to watch an interesting segment about the most important military events of the past day. First and foremost, we will be talking about Pokrovsk. The situation there is critical, as reported by various international media outlets. But right now, there are truly bloody battles going on there, although Alexander Syrsky says that there is no threat of encirclement. Volodymyr Zelensky also visited this area, awarded our defenders, those who are currently holding the Pokrovsk direction and destroying the Russians. By the way, let me remind you that the security service of Ukraine shared a video showing how, in recent days, they have eliminated 1,500 Russians using only drone systems. Let's watch a report about what is happening near Pokrovsk and in other sectors of the front, and then we'll discuss everything in detail in the studio. Let's go.
The decisive battle for Pokrovsk continues. Russian troops are advancing within the city, but Ukrainian forces are holding the defense and launching counterattacks, slowing down the enemy's actions. The defense forces continue clearing Pokrovsk of the occupiers. Now, in the northern part of the city, this has become possible thanks to the fact that over the past few days they have managed to reinforce with personnel and equipment. After a successful airborne operation, additional special forces joined the GUR commandos who had secured certain positions and established a ground corridor. According to the President of Ukraine, special operations of various kinds are taking place in Pokrovsk, but most of them should not be discussed. Russian troops are trying to break through the Ukrainian armed forces' defenses, attacking in several directions at once and concentrating the largest number of soldiers and officers here.
According to various estimates by the Ukrainian command, around 100,000 Russian servicemen are directly or indirectly involved in this entire operation around Pokrovsk. These are approximate figures. This is just to give you an idea of the scale of the forces involved. In fact, I would even say more. There have been instances of troops being redeployed from the Sumy region and from the direction of Kostiantynivka towards Pokrovsk to reinforce the area because there simply aren't enough personnel.
We're talking about so-called suicide squads. That is, contract soldiers whose average life expectancy is 12 days, as well as Russian Army special units and, in particular, Marine brigades. For example, the 155th Marine Brigade has been redeployed to the Pokrovsk direction from the Kursk region.
According to the Institute for the Study of War, the occupiers have advanced in the southern part of Minograd and in eastern Rodinskoye, gradually approaching the city of Pokrovsk itself.
There is no reason to speak of a firm foothold of Russian occupation forces in Minograd at this time. At present, the verified presence of Russian occupiers is limited to the territory of Mine Administration 5/6. Regarding Rodinskoye, it should be noted that the situation is changing dynamically. That is, the occupiers are trying to intensify their offensive in order to take direct control of locations held by Ukraine's defense forces. Ukraine's defense forces are conducting counterattacks to prevent further advances by the Russian occupiers.
The enemy is trying to encircle Pokrovsk and the nearby settlements. The occupiers are increasing the number of air attacks, particularly using glide bombs and drones.
There is no classic encirclement as it is usually understood or described in textbooks around the city of Pokrovsk. In other words, there is no continuous ring. It is not closed. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the part that is still open is about 5 kilometers wide. But this is the most critical distance and it no longer matters because Russian drones are already present there. Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already there, shells are flying in, and the situation for the movement of Ukrainian troops has deteriorated as much as possible in recent weeks.
According to the General Staff, over the past day, Ukrainian defenders have stopped 55 assault actions by the aggressor.
During these combined attacks, up to a tank battalion of the armed forces of the Russian Federation is used. That's more than 30 units of heavy armored vehicles. Moreover, they are using a no-expense-spared tactic. The occupiers are well aware of the superiority of Ukraine's defense forces in the use of FPV drones, and that no more than 20% of the heavy armored vehicles and accordingly personnel will actually reach the positions of Ukraine's defense forces.
Despite the enemy's active operations, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to hold their positions and destroy enemy forces.
Over the past week, the defense forces of Ukraine have successfully counterattacked and managed to liberate 4 settlements: Kucherev Yar, Suketske, Zatishok, and Shakove. At the moment, the occupiers are trying to intensify their offensive along the flanks of the Ukrainian grouping, specifically in the area of Vladimirovka, threatening to advance toward Grishino. These are combined attacks using armored vehicles, and in the area of Rodinsky.
On the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk operation, in the area of Dobropilia, Ukrainian forces have liberated part of the territory that Russian troops had previously advanced into. According to analysts, the Donetsk region remains the main direction of Russia's offensive this winter, with the goal of achieving tangible results by the spring of 2025.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Well, friends, Pokrovsk is definitely the topic of the day. Everyone understands perfectly well that beyond Pokrovsk lies another region of Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk. That is precisely why the entire tactic right now is essentially is to block the enemy, who is now trying to infiltrate and concentrate in the city of Pokrovsk. This was reported by the General Staff. And the defense of Pokrovsk and the Mirnohrad agglomeration continues. So far, our units are not encircled. It's very important to understand this. Right now, efforts are focused primarily on strengthening the flanks of the defense and the logistical routes. In addition, of course, it should be noted that the media, especially Western outlets like Bild, are publishing conflicting information, claiming that we have lost 80% of the city. They are referring to the loss of control by the Ukrainian armed forces, but nevertheless, the General Staff reports that this does not correspond to reality. Let's discuss something else, friends. Besides Pokrovsk, there is also important information about how Putin is reacting to Trump's statement on nuclear tests. Let me remind you that in addition to the announcement and in fact the order given by the American president to the Pentagon, we are now seeing a test launch of an intercontinental missile called Minuteman III. The missile is capable of carrying warheads and it flew about 4,500 miles. That's almost 6,750 kilometers. It reached the Ronald Reagan test site in the Republic of the Marshall Islands in the Pacific Ocean. This is the kind of response to Putin. It's important to note here that the US decided to resume nuclear tests after the Russian dictator once again boasted about Russia's Burevestnik and Poseidon. By the way, this Minuteman has been in service with the US since the 1970s, and essentially it is the only intercontinental ballistic missile that is silo-based. The closest analog to this missile is the Topol. But by the way, unlike the Topol, it doesn't have mobile launchers and can only be launched from a silo. Interestingly, in response to this, as you probably already know, Putin also said that new launches of Iskander missiles are now being conducted. Or rather, no, I apologize. It's about the fact that Putin wants to test the Burevestnik again. Moreover, today, while speaking with the General Staff, he formally and officially gave the order to continue nuclear tests at the Novaya Zemlya test site. And he discussed this with the head of the Russian Ministry of Defense, Belousov. So we also wanted to discuss with you how dangerous this is for Ukraine and what it could lead to. But as soon as the Minuteman in America actually began undergoing tests, we read Peskov's statement. He says, "I want to emphasize that the president did not give instructions to begin preparations for a nuclear test. The president instructed to look into the advisability of even starting such preparations for nuclear tests." So you see, it's like a punch in the face on one side, and on the other, immediately the mouth in the form of Peskov responds, "No, we're actually for peace, and we want peace all over the world." I think this is a very good litmus test for the United States and an indicator of how one should behave. By the way, I should note that the assault troops of the Skel regiment, that is Skala in Russian, have returned the Ukrainian flag to the building of the city council in Pokrovsk. I'm watching this video right now. We really hope this will become a good trend. And indeed, now all those reserves that are being actively transferred there will yield results. Friends, there's something else fundamentally important I think we should note. After the recent drone strikes by the SBU just a few days ago, the Russian port of Tuapse has suspended fuel exports. That is, all exports have been completely halted. In my opinion, this is excellent news. And there's something else I want to discuss with you, friends. On the night of October 4th, that is today, Special Operations Forces carried out a successful operation in the Kursk region, while everyone is talking about Pokrovsk. There, our Special Operations Forces destroyed an Iskander missile system and air defense elements. We're talking about the Kursk region. And considering that we're all waiting for Storm Shadow, we want to understand how these missiles will be used in the near future. These British super-effective missiles which last year struck Russian targets in Crimea. I hope they will also be used in the south and will primarily target ports like Tuapse, which, by the way, has halted fuel exports, as I remind you. By the way, the local oil refinery has also stopped processing crude oil in this region after a recent attack by Ukrainian drones. And of course, the topic that everyone is concerned about is the North Korean troops. How many of them could actually be sent to Ukraine? Right now, the discussion is that there are 5,000 soldiers whom North Korea is ready to send to Moscow. It doesn't seem like that many, but still, what kind of equipment they will have and which regions the Russian Federation will send them to remains a mystery for now. In total, it's important to note that since the beginning of autumn, about 5,000 military personnel have been transferred, including not only infantry, but also engineers and construction workers. Supposedly, their stated purpose for being sent is to restore infrastructure. But we all understand perfectly well what might really be behind this. And also, friends, just a few more updates on what's happening right now. And, I think it's worth noting. This isn't military news, but still, Angelina Jolie has come to Kherson. Local social media pages are reporting this. Indeed, the Hollywood superstar visited the Ukrainian city that has been liberated. It's noteworthy that the rules are the same for everyone, and her motorcade, with probably the world's most famous volunteer, was stopped in the region bordering Kherson. They were even sent to the military enlistment office to have their documents checked, as far as we've read, though we're currently verifying how accurate this information is. They're even posting videos showing Angelina Jolie entering a Ukrainian military enlistment office. Well, that's how it is, Angelina. We were waiting for you in Ukraine. Thank you for coming. And thank you, friends, for your attention. See you soon. Bye.